Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rory McLennan, coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. The Ugandan President has ordered more soldiers to move to the western part of the country, where militants linked to the Islamic State killed at least 37 students. Yoweri Museveni said that more troops have joined the pursuit to hunt down the Alliance Democratic Forces militants who were responsible for carrying out the attack on a school in the Kasese district on Friday night. Police and military sources said the assailants abducted 6 students after the attack and escaped towards the Virunga National Park across the border. Meanwhile, Pope Francis prayed for the victims of the attack during his Sunday Angelus. The Holy Father also asked everyone to pray for peace wherever there is tension and war. In the United States, the New York State Education Department has published a 42-page guidance for public schools. It includes a controversial section that instructs the authorities to keep a child's gender transition a secret from parents in certain circumstances. The guidance, entitled Creating a Safe, Supportive and Affirming Social Environment for Transgender and Gender-Expansive Students, says that a student's gender identity should be based on the person's own assertion alone, and such information should be kept a secret from families if necessary. The guidance says that it is the student who is in charge of gender transition and schools have to support it. This comes amid a gender ideology debate that is raging across several states in the country. Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles in the United States offered a reparatory Holy Mass on Friday in the presence of 2,000 believers, just hours before the so-called Pride event hosted by a well-known baseball team. The Mass was held before the Los Angeles Dodgers celebrated an anti-Catholic group of transvestites known as the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Archbishop Gomez said that when such acts are rewarded, it hurts the unity of the people as one city, one nation and one family under God. He urged believers to forgive persecutors and to pray for them based on the mandate of Jesus Christ. Separately, thousands of Catholics took part in a protest against the event in front of Dodger Stadium on Friday. 2 hours before the event, they gathered on the sidewalks and blocked one of the entrances. They were joined by several groups, including Catholics for Catholics, who had issued a call to action against the event. During their recently concluded spring plenary meeting, the Catholic bishops of the United States voted unanimously to advance the cause of the beatification and canonization of 5 priests. Known as the Shreveport Martyrs, they comprise 5 French priests who died while ministering to the sick in Shreveport in Louisiana amid the 1873 yellow fever epidemic. The Vatican's Dicastery for the Causes of Saints mandated that the 5 causes be considered together as one. Chairman of the U.S. Bishops' Committee on Canonical Affairs and Church Governance, Archbishop Jerome Listetsky of Milwaukee and Bishop Francis Malone of Shreveport, facilitated the discussion by the bishops during their spring meeting. The bishops expressed their support for advancing the cause of the beatification and canonization at the diocesan level through a voice vote. At the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in the American state of Maryland, Franciscan friars will once again be allowed to serve as chaplains after the contract was renewed. This comes 2 months after their contract went unrenewed in favour of a private defence contractor, provoking an outcry from prominent Catholics. According to a statement issued by Archbishop Timothy Broglio for the military services, the Franciscans of Holy Name College and Friary in Silver Spring were given a 5-year contract by the U.S. Defense Health Agency. Before their previous contract expired earlier this year, the priests worked as chaplains at the hospital for almost 20 years. The contract initially went to a secular contractor, which was criticised by the Archdiocese and religious freedom groups. The Archdiocese says it is the only Catholic authority able to endorse and grant faculties to Catholic priests and chaplains to serve in the US military. The head of the Maronite Church has blamed the Lebanese parliament for failing to elect a new president for the crisis-hit country. On Sunday, Patriarch Beshara Boutros Al-Rai condemned the parliament's inability to elect a head of state after 8 months of a power vacuum as a farce. He described the parliamentary session Wednesday last week as a cold-blooded violation of the Constitution and the democratic system. The Cardinal said that the failure to elect a president has widened divisions in the Middle Eastern country at a time when there is a desperate need for bolstering internal security. His beatitude urged all officials to rectify their mistakes and look at the needs of the country and the people. The reason for the failure to elect a new leader is that Christian blocs have rejected the candidacy of Suleiman Frangi, who is supported by the Iran-backed Hezbollah and the Shia Amal movement. A British Christian teaching assistant fired for criticising the gender agenda and sex education in schools has won an appeal in court. On Friday, President of the Employment Appeal Tribunal in London, Jennifer Eadie, ruled in favour of Christy Higgs. Eadie ruled that the freedom to manifest belief and to express views relating to that belief are essential rights in any democracy. Higgs was dismissed in 2019 from the Farmer School in Fairford, England, after she used social media to object against a Church of England mandate to introduce books promoting homosexuality and the gender agenda in schools. The former teacher also urged her family and friends to sign a petition against the Church of England plan. A similar petition was also signed by more than 100,000 people and then debated in Parliament. The President of the Appeal Tribunal also chided the Bristol judges for failing to determine whether the dismissal of Higgs was prescribed by law and necessary for the protection of the rights of others. The church in Hong Kong was blessed with 8 new permanent deacons on Saturday. The men received their diaconal ordination from Bishop Stephen Chow Sao Yan of Hong Kong Diocese in the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. The new deacons now join the ranks of 22 other permanent deacons, most of whom are married. Restored by the Second Vatican Council, the permanent deacons assist priests in serving the laity. It was the Diocese of Hong Kong that ordained the first permanent deacons in Asia way back in 1997, the same year in which the United Kingdom handed over the city to China. Cardinal John Baptist Wu welcomed the first diaconal candidates, paving the way for the new ministry. Permanent deacons work in parishes along priests and also take care of prisoners, the sick and the homeless. 5 of the first batch to be ordained in 1997 are since deceased, and 5 other permanent deacons then ordained have retired due to advanced age. The Diocese of Makurdi in Nigeria has been forced to close down 13 parishes because of the exodus of believers who are repeatedly being attacked by bandits and by jihadists. Thousands of Catholics have been forced to flee to safer areas to escape from death, rape and arson. Bishop Winfred Anagbe of Makurdi said that his diocese is situated in the Christian-majority Benue state, which is the hardest hit by attacks from Muslim Fulani herdsmen. Last year alone, 93 villages were attacked and 325 people were killed. Thousands of believers have been forced to seek refuge in camps for internally displaced people. There are also instances, however, when jihadists and bandits prey on camps and unleash mayhem. Pontifical Charity Aid to the Church in Need has said that Ukraine was the largest individual recipient of its aid last year. As much as 10% of the group's funds, amounting to €9.5 million, were channeled into the war-torn nation to help local communities and displaced people. The charity supported 353 projects in Ukraine, with many of them aimed at helping priests, religious and seminarians who are working among refugees. Regionally, Africa received the most support from ACN, with 31.5% of funds going to various nations to support church projects and personnel. It was followed by the Middle East and Central and Eastern Europe with 18 and 17% respectively. Latin America received 16% of the funds, while Asia and Oceania accounted for 14.6%. Last year, the charity also supported 40,000 priests, 21,000 religious sisters, as well as 14,000 seminarians around the world. A Catholic Archbishop in India's Manipur state in the northeast has said that as many as 249 churches were destroyed in recent violence. Archbishop Dominic Lumon said that the churches were destroyed within the first 36 hours of the conflict between members of the Métis and Kuki communities. The prelate alleged that the attacks might have been pre-planned, and some church leaders have been told not to rebuild their places of worship. Archbishop Lumon alleged that the state and federal governments have been incapable of bringing an end to the violence and restoring normalcy since the start of the conflict in the middle of April. He said that constitutional machinery has collapsed in the state. The Catholic prelate said that state forces have not been able to prevent things from spinning out of control in a single place. While most of the Métis are Hindus, the Kukis are Christians. However, a large portion of the destroyed churches belong to the minority Métis Christians. A man said to be under the influence of alcohol threw stones at the windows of the room said to be the site of the Last Supper of Jesus Christ. No one was injured in the June the 15th incident, in which a stained glass window of what is known as the cenacle was shattered. This site is sacred to Christians and is situated outside Jerusalem's old city walls. A security guard at the site detained the perpetrator, an Israeli Jew, who was later summoned before a magistrate's court judge and released on the condition that he avoids Jerusalem's old city for 30 days. This attack adds to recent acts of violence against Christians and sacred sites in Jerusalem. It occurs amid protest by radical Jewish religious organizations who allege that Christians want to convert the Jewish community. The violence against the Catholic Church and its leaders in Mexico is continuing. In the latest incident, 2 female catechists were shot dead on the 15th of June. The pair, who belonged to the parish of San Juan Bautista Coppola in the Diocese of Huajuapan de León in Oaxaca State, were on their way to participate in a Eucharistic celebration when they were gunned down by an armed group. The victims belonged to the Triqui indigenous people and were heading to the celebrations of the 25th anniversary of the priestly ordination of Bishop Miguel Angel Castro Munoz. According to the Oaxaca State Attorney General's office, the young women were travelling in a truck when they came under attack. This comes just days after an attack against a Catholic church in the Latin American nation. In order to silence the Catholic Church in Nicaragua altogether, the Daniel Ortega regime has frozen the bank accounts of numerous priests. Lawyer and researcher Martha Patricia Molina released information about the freezing of accounts on the orders of President Ortega. Molina said the priests' bank accounts were frozen from the 14th of June. The news surfaced when some priests went to the bank only to be told that their accounts were suspended without warning. Earlier, the authoritarian regime had frozen the bank accounts of various dioceses, the Episcopal Conference, and other Catholic organizations. Through an official statement, police officials confirmed that they are investigating the Catholic Church and priests for alleged money laundering. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more. And do remember, you can always visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.